When did the I crave attention kid go too far? Snuck vodka into state mandated testing in a water bottle. She was sent home drunk off her butt and my entire class was banned from having water bottles in class for the rest of the year. My entire class was banned from having water bottles in class for the rest of the year. I never even used a water bottle and I'd still hate that kid for it. He was a jerk. I had a couple of pet goats and he would come over and bully them all the time. He'd poke them through the fence with sticks, throw rocks at them, spook them with loud noises, but he'd never go into the pen. He was too scared of them. He should have known better. He was 16. One day we're all inside and we hear this blood-curdling scream. In comes the kid, screaming at the top of his lungs. The goat is after me, help. We turn to see the big billy goat staring at him through the sliding glass door. Every once in a while it'd headbutt the glass. Now this was a very docile animal. He'd have never hurt a fly, but he was out for that boy's blood. It turns out that the kid had been torturing the goat. He had him pinned up against the wall of the pen throwing rocks and sticks at its testicles to see if he could hit them. The goat came after him, scaled the fence, and chased him across 3 acres of land and into the house. The kid waited for 2 hours for the goat to go away, but it never did. Anytime he opened a door to try to sneak away, the goat was right there trying to attack him. Eventually the goat disappeared and the kid tried to sneak out a window feet first, and once again started screaming, because the goat was right there head-butting his backside as he climbed out. It was absolutely liberating. Started angrily pumping weights when we were chilling at someone's house. Threatened to shave his head and then tore his shirt off of his body. She told the whole school that some dude got her pregnant with twins, and that she had an abortion. She printed pictures of ultrasounds off the internet, and put balloons on his locker on the twins' birthday. Jokes on her because she didn't cut the URL off one of the ultrasound pictures. That's next level of dumbness. A teacher friend of mine told me once about a student she had who cut a hole in the pocket of his jeans so he could stick his dong through it, and when the teacher wasn't looking he'd poke it out through the pocket and thrust it towards the girls in class. Finally one day she caught him in the act and he got either suspended or kicked out. IDR. Why? There was this girl for a while that had this huge crush on me, and she didn't seem to realize that she had been a total jerk to me for most of my life and that I really disliked her. Finally she decided to get my attention by stealing my $300 leather jacket and saying that she wouldn't give it back unless I went out with her. So I contacted her mom and told her that if she didn't intervene, then my parents were going to press charges. The day after she gave my jacket back, she sent me this long butt text talking about how I hurt her so badly, and it would take a long time to earn back her trust. I replied by saying I don't want you to trust me, I want you to leave me alone, and we haven't spoken since. Pro gamer move. Little brother is a few years younger than me. He used to come into my room to harass me all the time and my parents never allowed me to have a lock. He was around 10 when I started propping a piano stand under my doorknob to keep people out. I'm so sick of people saying it was a fire hazard. You'd use whatever you could to if your parents never knocked and your brother used to shoot you with airsoft guns. Little brother pushed the door and the piano stand was at the knob. I ignored it before all I heard was the loudest bang followed by a thud. I opened the door to see him laying on the floor, holding his face, and crying. Apparently, he decided that he could break down my door like in the movies by throwing himself against it after running from down the hall. But this dumbass didn't just throw his shoulder or kick it. He threw his entire body against it like a squirrel going for a tree, arms and legs out, face freaking first. I got blamed for it, but it was worth it. Only time I ever laughed that hard at his expense again was when he tried to fart into my room and shat himself about 2 years later. That last part is the very definition of a critical failure. My junior year of high school, someone threatened to shoot up graduation. Rightfully the police were called and he was suspended. Similar story here. Some kid told he was going to bring a grenade to the school camp and he wasn't allowed to go in the end. Fricked a horse and took a video of it. Bragged to a couple other weirdos about the horse fricking. They sent themselves the video off his phone and it went around the whole school. Enlisted right after graduation, probably to escape horsesucker reputation. It would take more than one guy to frick a horse, allegedly. I was at my friend's house. I was bored and started playing Portal 2 on his Xbox. After a while my other friend's sister, who mind you treated attention like a drug, burst into the room and starts screaming at me like we were dating and in a fight. My friend was there too and just watched. Every time I would tell her to leave she would get louder. He was a massive jerk. One day we had a supply in science and he got up on the desk, whipped his dong out and yelled "I'm Gandhi," then ran out of the classroom. He went to a special needs school 2 months later. That mother sucker. Faked her own kidnapping as a senior prank. Even got the attention of Amber Alert. There used to be a guy in my class that would do anything for attention. The other guys in class liked to make him do dumb stuff and he always thought he somehow proved himself. He did things like cutting off his hair during lessons, touched girls where he shouldn't and start fire alarms just for fun. One day he got caught masturbating in the cafeteria. Twice. I just imagine him sneaking back into the cafeteria with shifty eyes. Had an online friend claim while we were making an MC server that he was super rich and had a mansion, and like 5 Bugattis and Ferraris and what the fuck ever. Showed us inspect element versions of his PayPal, posted his Google image butt cars all over the Discord, had a mightier than thou tone, abused his admin on the server a lot. He never once showed us his actual face or spoke on VC. Once he got busted, he DM'd me pretending to be his brother saying that he had died. Then a couple days later his brother DM'd me and said the doc's fricked up and he's actually been in a coma for like 2 days but told me to tell you he feels betrayed that you never believed him. I blocked the frick out of him when he DM'd me a few months later saying sup bro, been a long time since I saw you. Anyone wants proof of this? I got you. PS. Frick off Salvatore you snot rocket in a crap covered tree. I would like to laugh at this convo please. Started yelling and screaming purely in an annoying and antagonistic way during a school shooting drill. We had no idea it was a drill and the kid is just banging on walls and yelling hey we're in here as other students are in the corner and girls are crying because they truly believe this kid is going to get them killed. The teacher and student aides were trying to restrain him and a friend of mine again, still under the impression this was real, literally stood up to go punch his lights out to shut him up just as the drill ended and was revealed to be just a drill. Had the announcement come a few seconds later that kid would have gotten knocked the heck out. That is honestly terrifying. In elementary school some kid unzipped his pants in front of a bunch of people and was showing people his underwear. Everyone was old enough to recognize that it was not funny. My ex-roommate did a whole lot of stupid crap for attention. She constantly posted things on social media like the world would be better off without me, nobody wants me alive etc. But she always refused to get actual help. When her boyfriend broke up with her, she went around telling everyone that she broke up with him after he raped her. She always bragged to people she had just met about how many guys she had been with, how much she loved weed and alcohol etc. She got engaged to her Tinder fuck buddy she had only known for a few months, and she made me homeless because her engagement was supposed to be a secret from her parents. They found out and she blamed me, so she made a whole bunch of crap up about me emotionally abusing her, even though that's what she was doing to me the entire time I lived with her. That way her parents would kick me out. They owned the loft we were staying in. I haven't spoken to her since I was kicked out, but from what I hear from other people, the psycho bitch is going nowhere in life. She got kicked out of her first choice university, dropped out of community college after failing all of her classes her first semester, and has been stuck as a cashier at a crappy grocery store for the past 2 years. Oh, and her Tinder fuck buddy broke the engagement with her right after I was made homeless. Guess he finally got a brain and realized she's insane. Good for him. Not the worst thing ever, but way back in middle school, I was about 3 football fields away from the school itself. It had a large grass field behind it that we occasionally had to run to the end on, and the friend I was with passed out. I carried her back to the school and the moment I got to the nurse's office she was miraculously better and felt fine. Oh, I knew someone similar. We'd be walking down the halls all fine, and as soon as our mutual friend, her crush, turned the corner, her ankles were jello, all over the place, but she'd be fine if we told her to go to the nurse's office. Also faked a mental breakdown to get out of doing a majority of her work in our group project, and to get said mutual friend's attention. There was a kid on our school bus who needed way too much attention. He was constantly screaming or throwing stuff out the window. He at one point reenacted giving birth the whole ride, complete with legs spread, screaming, fake pushing, etc. One day he threw a water bottle and hit a car. He was banned from the bus for the year. The next year he was allowed back on. In the first week he pulled out a needle and pierced his lower lip while on the bus. Of course it was bumpy, so he didn't get it centered, so he did it again to even it out. He was banned from the bus again. Maybe he just really hated the bus. This stupid butt kid did a ton of acid shortly before a pep rally in high school and freaked out during it. First the school called the police, but apparently he was freaking out too much, so they had to call an ambulance to hold him down and carry him out via stretcher. Pretty sure he got expelled because I never saw him in one of the classes we were both in ever again. In high school, claimed she was pregnant with triplets and then a few weeks later claimed she had cancer now, so she lost them. What a soap opera of a person. Not me, but my mom's story. When she was in high school there was this kid who was always desperate for attention and would do stupid things to get it. Well, one day he decided he would drink poison to get attention. He almost died. He had to be taken to the hospital and have his stomach pumped. He said it felt like worms were eating him from the inside out. Wonder what was going on in his home life to make him that desperate. I had a friend growing up called Jody. She would always lie about things to get attention. As we grew up and went to different schools, we grew apart. Once I turned 17, I got into contact with her in hopes of getting to know her again. I assumed that because she was 17, that she had grown up and stopped trying to get attention. I also had other friends that I would see, and she was definitely jealous. Then she dropped a bombshell. Her dad was dying. I was devastated for her, and spent less time with my own friends as I felt that she needed me more. As soon as she would find out I was with my friends, she would cry and ask me to come over as she was depressed. She also claimed that she was pregnant with a girl, and that she had lost her when she was almost 4 months pregnant. She would cry to me all the time about her baby girl, and would cry as she was scared to lose her dad. Mother's Day would come, and she would talk about how this should be her day and she should have had a baby girl by now. She also took a lot of time off work to be with her dad, and her work was very supportive of her. It all came crashing down when she had a phone call from her co-worker to ask how her dad was. Jody cried and said that her dad didn't have long left, and that he had forgotten who she was when she saw him last. She said that she wanted to die for it to be all over. I remember crying as I was scared for her, and felt helpless. I went home and the next day, she phoned and asked me to get to her house straight away. She sat me down and told me that she had made it all up about her dad dying, and that she never lost a baby. She said that she was only telling me this because her co-worker had grown worried for her, and came to her house to have a word with Jody's mum so that she could have more time off work. Her mother wasn't at home, so Jody knew she couldn't keep lying anymore. I was honestly scared of her at that point, as I knew that if I had gotten mad, she probably would have made something up about me because that's how she is. I asked where her dad was, and he obviously wasn't at the hospital, but he was on a business trip. I asked her where she had gotten the scan, and she said that she had gotten it online. She also said that the reason why she lied was because she loved all the attention that she was getting from everyone, and that had started because she wanted a day off work, which turned into weeks. The scary part about her lying for attention was that it was like that she was starting to believe it all herself. I wish that I could explain it more, but this is already a lot to read. Please keep going. I knew a pathological liar in high school. She would tell you one thing one day and something the complete opposite the next. For example, one day she tells me about a threesome she had. The very next day she tells me she's a virgin. Which one is it, lady? Schrodinger's nymphomaniac. I used to work a boys and girls club. There was one particular girl who was around 7-8. She came in one day with a bruise. Told the lady at the counter that her mom abused her. CPS and cops were called. Determined that no, mom did not beat her. In fact, mom was very freaked out and worried about it. A couple days later the girl runs up to me and another worker with a busted lip and blackish eye. Fresh. She told us that another kid beat her up. We go to look on the cameras. I crap you not. This girl tells the other kid that I can't remember which, was gonna get into big trouble for refusing to play with her. She proceeds to run into the wall several times. When that didn't do much, she takes a broom handle and literally jabs her eye with it, repeatedly. Then, once she has a black eye, she bites her lip to make it bleed. Then she runs out to tell on said kid. IDK what happened next as I was scheduled to do my lifeguarding duty. Last I heard, she hasn't come back. I sure hope she was put in a mental ward or some crap. Kid was psycho. I knew one guy who was a pathological liar. One day I was bummed because I had just broke things off with my girlfriend. He asked why I was bummed and I replied my GF and I just broke up. To which he responded, you think that's bad? My GF died, he said it with a pretty big smile on his face. That kid was actually one of my best friends and he punched me after confronting him about his plummeting grades. His grades were plummeting because he played Undertale too much. It's like a 5-hour game. Some wannabe goth kid borrowed my 9-inch nails t-shirt at a roller skating rink and put on a bunch of makeup. His girlfriend promptly broke up with him because he was behaving like an idiot. He then made a very public scene about how he was going to hang himself in the public bathroom. The police and ambulance came and took him away. All the while he was wearing my freaking t-shirt. I never got that shirt back. He went too far. My old friend online. He used to say he was depressed and suicidal, and did self-harm. Everyone thought they were real. At first I did too, until I was looking up fake cuts on YouTube for Halloween, and saw a cut that looked like his. Went back on Discord to look at the picture of the cut, and there I saw the pen ink, and confronted him. But apparently he was rushed to an emergency room from that same cut, and was put on suicide watch for 24 hours but had his phone the entire time, and couldn't take pictures of proof. In the end, a few weeks later we were in a Discord server, and I joined the public call there and there he was. Yet a few weeks ago I lied to my old friend saying I got some cut and was in the emergency room. We talked daily still like real friends and not old friends. Then I said, oh really? Well then we're not talking anymore then, and he tried apologizing and saying he lied to then, but I was done with his balls. I blocked him and never talked to him again. This was December 2018. That's just a weird thing for him to brag about. A girl in 6th grade started yelling at me and my friend that we were racist just because we both happened to be white. When we ignored her, she went to the teacher and told her that we called her fat and were bullying her. She's also super skinny and in shape too. I'm entirely Hispanic but appear white, and some girl tried that on me in elementary school. When I told her I wasn't white, then she ironically started making racist comments about the Mexicans. Such a hypocritical mayo. A girl walked into class incredibly late, and all our desks faced the whiteboard, and as she walked to get to her seat she had to pass most of the occupied desks. So we're all staring at the whiteboard while she walks past us and she just yells, "What are you all looking at?" Obviously the whiteboard, Stacy. She sent picture of cuts on her arms to other students via Snapchat with no warning. When kids responded, she left them on open. The school and her parents obviously got involved and she was called to the office first thing in morning the next day. I later found out she sent them because she was curious as to what people would say to her if she self-harmed. The cuts weren't deep, just deep enough to draw a small big of blood. They healed in a month or so and didn't even scar, but it freaked people out. This girl never really apologized or showed any kind of remorse. She was almost proud of the fact that people tried to contact her or help her. Kids called her house phone to speak to her parents. Needless to say, most people haven't forgiven her. She was sent to therapy, was confirmed to be non-suicidal, and that's where the story ends. I'm not sure if she is still in therapy. He was this annoying popular kid who loved getting attention, and in 6th grade he set a bathroom trash can on fire so the entire school had to stand out in the snow for like 10 minutes, and then we sat in the gym for another 15. SMH, what a dumbass. Same situation, but our worried kid set the bathroom trash can on fire in 12th grade. He jumped into a window and crashed into the playground. He was expelled and we didn't have a window in the classroom for 2 years. That's a really long time for a window replacement. A compulsive liar told the friend circle that she was raped and had a miscarriage. She was inconsolable and got lots of sympathies over it. When my sister asked about it at a later date, compulsive liar had no clue what she was talking about. Mild example, but I always cringe when I remember it. My female classmate goes up to her 50+ male teacher and chirps out, "Hi Mr. Anderson, I'm legal now." She moved to our town in maybe 10th or 11th grade, and I remember having a good first impression of her, but she became more selfish and annoying over time. No one else seems to think it was too far, but she drove the car into a pole her very first, and only, time driving. Her dad took her around an empty parking lot and she managed to crash it, damage the car, broke her dad's nose. I don't think she got hurt too bad, but she never had to drive again. Now her best friend carts her everywhere she needs to go, and she's expressed to multiple people that she doesn't see why she needs to drive if her friend can take her places. She also made sure her parents saw the first time she ever cut, said the dog did it, showed me the cuts the same morning, and talked all about how she was just, like, so bad at hiding it. She wore a short skirt just so she could show it off. What's the most obnoxious attention-seeking behavior you've witnessed? A woman at work stopped me to say she's a new grandmother, and I say congratulations. She then asks, clearly wanting a compliment, if she looks old enough to be a grandmother. This woman looks like the woman from Kingpin. Should have said, yay, it's 2018, some grannies are barely 30. Friend of mine was dating a woman who wanted to be an opera singer. She started singing during dinner at the Olive Garden, loudly. My mother-in-law has a frenemy like this. You can't take the woman anywhere with a piano, or you'll be stuck there 5 hours later while she treats whoever else is still in the room to a too loud, overly flowery rendition of some song from the 30s. One time when I was like 17, I nearly drowned. While my friends were checking on me, the drama queen of the group started having a full-blown panic attack. All she needed was everyone to flock around her instead and she was fine. It didn't bother me, but it was the time I realized she did that a lot, having panic attacks when the attention is on someone else. I had a friend who used to pretend to faint regularly. Once it became obvious it was just an act, we started ignoring her when she'd faint, and then she'd get up crying because no one cared enough to check on her. This was just one of the plethora of issues she had. There's one of those in the periphery of my social circle. My honcho watched her pretend to faint to the ground, pause, slyly peek around to see if anyone noticed, then readjust her fainted body into a more walkway, centralized position that might be noticed sooner. Super sad. My husband's family refused to attend our very small wedding unless they could bring 3 times the number of people we invited and have it be a combination wedding morbid memorial service for someone who died 7 years before who we were not close to. Their compromise was the hordes of extra guests would attend the reception but not eat the food. They still don't talk to us because we didn't make our wedding a memorial service. I still wonder what my side of the family would have made of that if we had. My ex-girlfriend once threatened to run away because I went on a day trip with a few friends that she couldn't attend because she worked Saturdays. She was 29. I have a great mental picture of a 29-year-old woman tying a handkerchief to a stick and sitting in the bushes at the end of the driveway or clambering up a tree into a treehouse until she has to pee, or gets hungry, of course. I have a friend on Snapchat who constantly sends out snaps like I wish boys would tell me how cute I am, always followed like 30 minutes later by another saying something like I guess nobody loves me, okay cool, guess I'll just go die alone. They send these snaps like every other day and it gets more cringe-worthy every time. Oh dear, I know a girl who posts stories saying I wish someone would just love me or looking for a long-term relationship, followed by I don't need anyone in my life, I am independent a few days later. My sister gets off on sympathy. I mean, she really enjoys hearing "oh I am sorry for you guys" praying. Anytime someone in her family is sick, she makes a long drawn out Facebook post asking for prayers for whichever sick person it is. She has also been known to send out a 30-40 group text asking for prayer. She had 4 kids and one of them is always sick. Good God, your kid has a freaking cold, you don't need to let everyone know about it. Drives me nuts. The funny thing is that her friends have started to figure it out and now hardly anyone ever comments on it. It's like Munchausen's by proxy, light. Oh, at my secretary's wedding, one of her bridesmaids tried to make the wedding about her. She demanded a different cut to her dress because the chosen one was not flattering. All the other bridesmaids and the bride had basically the same hairdo. Then our special princess got her own fancy thing going that was different enough to stand out. She got the DJ to play some obscure song that her and the bride listened to like 4 times on a lunch break, so she could have her special time on the dance floor with the bride. After the dance floor shenanigans, she then fainted because she was stressed from all the attention. There was a photo booth. Most people were in there twice, once with their dates etc, and then with the bridegroom. Our royal pain in the butt was in there at least 10 times that night. I knew someone who started a Facebook group that she auto-invited a bunch of people to where she said she had trauma-induced amnesia and she wanted everyone to tell her nice memories that we had about her to help her beat it. What a perfect time to make up balls embarrassing stories that you enjoyed. They can't correct you. They have amnesia. I have a family member that has to be the center of every conversation. Like if there are 7 people at a table, she has to have every second contribution to the point of talking over anyone who dares try and get their say in. I could easily assume that you and I are close relatives, but I'll bet that this person exists in many families. My mom visited my sister in Mississippi for Christmas one year with her boyfriend. They had pulled out a bush that was dead right before she arrived and hadn't had time to fill in the hole yet. Their porch was long and didn't have stairs. You could just step off of it anywhere. My brother-in-law watched from the window as my mother stepped purposefully into the hole, then laid on the ground and called her boyfriend to help her because she had fallen and couldn't get up. She then spent the rest of the day complaining about her injuries and about how long it took for her boyfriend to come to her rescue. My brother-in-law didn't tell my sister until later. When she asked why he didn't call her out on it when he witnessed it, his reply was, "I knew if you two started fighting I wouldn't get laid tonight." This man has priorities. One girl at school accidentally dropping a packet of cigarettes into the path of some of the cooler girls. It was embarrassing to see. I dropped my monster condom that I use for my magnum dong. When my son was being born, my fiance's mom came to visit from North Carolina. I'm in a 20 hours drive. The doctor came in and said she would need a C-section and that she could only take one person in with her. Her mom immediately started in about how it should be her. When my fiance chose me, her mom stormed out of the room. Turns out she left to go pack all of her stuff at the hotel. She came back for about 10 minutes to see the baby, and then left a week early. Go to love it when the trash takes itself out. Anytime a patient comes in with pseudo seizures, one patient literally said, "Just to warn you, my aura is very off today," and a few seconds later proceeded to pretend to have a seizure by flopping around like a fish and then settling down like a statue with her eyes closed. My roommate's brother, when drunk, suddenly wants to be the center of attention. He'll walk around the party asking people if they want food and then he'll start making food, normally sloppily and poorly. He'll get in people's faces and it quickly becomes uncomfortable. Anyways, inevitably we'll all start ignoring him and that's when the temper tantrums will start. He's thrown bottles, kicked walls, stolen dogs. It gets really out of hand. Can typically take a fun party and ruin it. Have an ex who cut her wrists when I broke up with her. She also broke my window, ran around the town naked, etc. that night. But that's a longer story. Instead of actual cutting, though, she just made a bunch of very light scratches and sent me pictures of it. It looked like a cat had scratched her or something. No actual bleeding or damage at all. She then proceeded to wear thick gauze bandages on her wrist for the next week at work. So stupid. I think we all want that longer story. I was in a park with some friends when I was a teen and some nearby drunks threw a bottle at my friend's head, knocked her out cold. Next, they beat me and my friend up for confronting them. But the worst part is when one of the girls in our group got visibly more and more upset that people were checking on me and the other beat up guy and ignoring her. She leaves in a huff and returns a minute later with the worst bloody nose I've ever seen, wailing like a child. She says they came back and tried to rape her. The moment I realized how fricked up she was when all of her friends dismissed it instantly and told her to step back. I can only imagine what they were used to at that point. I can't imagine how crappy her childhood was if she needs that much verification she exists. Oh my god. We found out last night that my brother, faking all of the bad things in his life, it's a long story, Here we go. About a month ago he had a confrontation with the cops. We have no idea what happened, but he stormed off towards a buddy's house, knife in hand, wanting to beat this guy up. My mom called the cops on him and they had to chase and cuff him. He was taken to a local hospital. 2 weeks ago, he said he was suicidal and called the cops and was checked into inpatient. He didn't want to see my mom or sister or dad. He was released on his 17th birthday. Things were quiet and calm. 3 days ago, he told his therapist that his online girlfriend of 6 months had committed suicide in a video chat with him. He had bought rings for them and was trying to go see her, as she lived in a different state. Last night, he called the cops on himself to keep him from harming himself. He had a multi-tool open to the knife part in the parking lot of our apartment. The officers cuffed him and took him to the hospital to go back to the psych ward. Well, I called my aunt so she could be with my, obviously, distraught mother, and she suggested going through his computer and at least getting a name for this girlfriend so we could either pay respects or find out the truth. And man, was I furious. The girl he had been claiming was dead had messaged him every day. She's alive and well. He was using pictures she had taken to gain sympathy from other people, including a 26-year-old middle school teacher he wanted to be with. This teacher was struggling to keep this professional and just friendly, as she had a job to upkeep and a boyfriend. He told this woman that he was dealing drugs. He has no income to start dealing. At one point he had told her he bought H, but he said it was in a pill form. The rings he had bought, he sent different stock photos to different people about it. He did buy at least one for himself, but I'm not sure if it was a set. It was meant for this 26-year-old. Her boyfriend called him out, tell him he needed to stop with the rings and flirting because it's creepy. The day he got in a fight with the cops. On top of all this, he has a friend that lives nearby he calls his girlfriend on occasion. She doesn't feel the same way, that he had told all these fake stories to. When I was asking her questions about it all, he said he stopped doing drugs and was trying to stop drinking. Had started school again, he dropped out freshman year like an idiot, and all this stuff. When I told her the truth, she was destroyed. She thought she was helping someone and was instead getting played. We were going to see the new Star Wars Episode 1. We were all 15, we bought plastic lightsabers and we were all excited. This guy shows up with his girlfriend, and he sees another girl in our group and runs over excitedly hugs her. The girlfriend, while we are lightsaber battling, gets down on her knees and screams "No" and starts bawling her eyes out. I can only imagine she sounded exactly like Vader when doing this. My grandfather passed away last year. He was a widower and got married again to the gal whom no one liked. At his burial, in which he was buried with my grandma's ashes, she collapses and does the whole pity me and pay attention to me because everyone was focused on the service and burial of my grandpa. Everyone stops what they are doing to check her out. As soon as an ambulance was brought up, she made a miraculous bounce back. In meetings at work, there was this one person whom would bring every efficient and productive conversation to a screeching halt by wanting to have the last word. He spoke slowly, couldn't be interrupted, and it was always irrelevant, vague and inconsequential content that made everyone in the meeting lose any and all built-up momentum or interest. This girl was dating my old roommate and had a massive crush on my boyfriend. Whenever we had people over, she would get up and do a handstand against the front door, or do a split, or, the best, she would take her pants off and walk around with just a shirt and underwear on, bending at the waist to pet the cat, in a bikini. I was at an In-N-Out Burger with my girlfriend one day and the place was packed. The workers were rushed and struggling to get all the food out in a timely manner. There was a sorority girl about 20 or so standing at the counter trying to talk to the guy who was calling out the orders. The guy asks her if she can sit down cause she's blocking the counter and there are a lot of orders that need to get out. She somehow took that as an invitation to help. The calls for order number 12. The girl echoes him and calls out 12 in a nasally Valley Girl voice. She doesn't stop calling for number 12 though. She's yelling at the top of her lungs trying to get the whole restaurant's attention. Is there a number 12? Number 12, one number 12, number 12, number 12, number 12. Number 12, your food looks really good. Number 12, come get your order. Number 12 going once. Number 12 going twice. Sold to me. The girl pops one hip, throws her hands in the hair, points at herself and smiles at what she must consider the pinnacle of comedy. Only maybe 3 minutes after the order was originally called, a tired, middle-aged woman with 4 kids in tow struggles through the crowd to get to the front and quietly says, "I'm number 12. The sorority girl looks at her and yells "oh goo," and then kind of skips away. Roommate got an abortion. Proceeded to tell everybody and their brother about it like it was nothing. She had gotten pregnant from a younger guy when she had not been taking HRR birth control and decided to have a sex without a condom. She used this experience to have a talk with the guy where she got to be the wise, older one, saying she just wants him to be smarter and what if he really hurt some other girl. Always use a condom, remember. She knew she wasn't on birth control and agreed to condom-less sex. This was her second abortion like this. 2 weeks later, another roommate of ours, who is quite religious, sent us a picture of her cousin's newborn baby. Abortion roommate now suddenly, after 2 weeks of openly telling people about the abortion and not caring at all, claims she has been struggling with the abortion and it's been so hard. How dare she be sent a picture of a baby? Clearly this was meant to get a rise out of her. She later went on to claim religious roommate only did this to slight her because she disagrees with abortions. When religious roommate took care of her after the abortion, TLDR, crappy roommate gets an abortion after choosing to have unprotected sex and then milks it for attention. She also, to this day, lies about knowing celebrities or having run-ins with them to seem cool. She's 27. It wasn't just one thing. It was a combination of things at a wedding that I couldn't get past. A friend of mine had a smallish out-of-town wedding on the beach. The vast majority of the guests were from Colorado. The reception was at a private club on the water and the bar banquet area was rented out. It was a nice, intimate wedding and everybody knew everybody, pretty much. 50 people were in attendance. The wedding planner was a bridesmaid and one of the most toxic, attention-desperate people I have met. Everything was about her. She was the wedding planner, but this was a small venue for her. According to her, she was used to planning 2,000-person events for celebrities and socialites. She said this many times. People quietly rolled their eyes and kept their mouths shut. Then she was the girlfriend of a world-famous singer. Nobody asked who it was. She kept saying it. Nobody asked. Then she finally said she was dating the drummer for a band with some top 40 hits. Something that 5 minutes on Google would confirm. Then she drank more than anybody, made more money, spent more time around famous people, traveled to more countries, went to the best clubs, had people fly her to anywhere you might possibly mention. All pretty childish and innocuous in its own way. Just another character in a wedding. Until the wedding day. Remember how she said she was a professional wedding planner? She was at the wedding on the beach in 10-20 miles per hour wind, ushering guests and wedding party attendees down a stairway. She was wearing a dress that barely covered her butt and not a stitch of underwear. The entire wedding bride, groom, guests, parents, grandparents, and the like saw her butt and pee many times as she ran up and down the stairs. The event planner, who handled world-renowned events for thousands of guests at a time, didn't have the sense to wear a dress that would allow her to perform the basic functions of an event planner or underwear. It was amazing. My wife guffawed when I whispered in her ear that I could see the underside of her brain. Apparently, the after party was where the real shit show started. She stole prescriptions, go blackout drunk, pushed someone in the pool while they were taking group photos, lost her crap, crying, screaming, sobbing, blaming, throwing herself on dudes who were there with their dates, etc. etc. ETA remembered the band, One Republic. She said she dated or was dating the drummer for One Republic, a person who, when googled, has a long history of domestic assault and whose girlfriends are pretty well known. This girl in my Spanish class screaming that I was stalking her because I noticed we had the same birthday, even though the birthdays were posted on the wall for all to see since the first day of school. Being born on the same day is a major stalker move though, shows that you've been stalking her your whole life. Every single time my mother calls or texts me, she will ask me a question. I answer and then she completely changes the subject to her miserable life, her crappy job, blah blah blah. This has been routine for the last 6 years. It's extremely exhausting and it's pretty much the reason why I avoid talking to her. Had a friend who used to do this. I just stopped taking her calls. Best of luck ghosting your mom. When I was in class one day, we had this guy, class clown wannabe, wouldn't shut up. We'll call him Dong. Dong acted like such a huge Richard towards everyone, in attempt to be funny. I think it came to a point one day that on his way to class, he wanted to make a grand entrance. He was late already and thought he'd totally steal the show by entering into class doing the more impressive cartwheel anyone's ever seen. So the door opens. He yells it's hump day and attempts to cartwheel into the classroom. He ends up knocking the teacher in the face with his laced up Converse shoes and destroying his knees on the border of the blackboard. Turns out he fricked his ankle pretty bad too. Came back to school 3 days later on crutches. Never cartwheeled again. Does that count? I don't think I have ever cringed so hard at work before. Check any cosplay group on Facebook and you'll see way too many attempts at people trying to gain any attention at all. It's why I quit that toxic as crap community a few years ago. It has only gotten worse. At a neighborhood block party, I saw a little girl perform a short violin piece for the neighbors at her parents' request. Her brother could not handle it. He literally got right in front of her and started jumping up and down, waving his arms and making faces, until a mom in the crowd physically grabbed and removed him. Having 2 children at once seems like a strategic mistake. Having 2 children at once seems like a strategic mistake. Nah, the advantages of playing them off against each other far outweigh the disadvantages. A really hot girl at my old job dropped some stuff in the break room one time and like 4 guys rushed to help her pick it up. I just sat there eating my chips. She gave me a weird look. Few days later when it was just me, she dropped things again and looked at me like she expected me to come over and help. Just stared at her. I almost came from the satisfaction. Constantly posting pictures of themselves with inspirational quotes or some sort of text either in the caption or overlaid on the picture. Like, all the time, every day multiple pictures of yourself with some quote or music lyric about beauty. 6 years ago on a deployment to Afghanistan, one of the NCOs in our unit got the horrible news that his wife had cancer. Obviously, they shipped this guy home pretty quickly. They even did one of those daddy surprises his kids by coming home early bits on the local news. When the rest of the unit rotated home a few months later, we found out his wife didn't have cancer. She faked the whole thing because she wanted the attention. The guy ended up separating from the military a few months later to pursue his career as a country music singer. What a chode. Snapchat stories that are completely black, but have text that say something like, had a bad night, don't ask, or some other sappy buttballs. I have a friend who told us she was wolf whistled at on the street outside our college by some construction men. When they whistled at her, she shot back, excuse me, but I'm not a freaking dog. One of the men then grabbed her from behind and molested her. She never reported the incident, despite the fact the man would have been highly identifiable due to his construction uniform and proximity to campus. A few weeks later, she was mugged on the street. They stole her phone. Again, she never reported it to the police. The day before a large piece of coursework was due in, she lost it due to computer issues and had to rewrite it in one evening. Cue hysterics. She never took her laptop to IT to see if it could be salvaged, despite IT services being free and readily available. Her drink was spiked at a club. Again, no report was made, not even to the club to inform them of what occurred. She claimed the man was stalking her, seeing him on 5 separate occasions in our very large city. She never photographed him to use as evidence. When she spoke to him, she never took his name, and she never reported it to anyone. She claimed a mutual acquaintance had had a drink spiked and been raped. This never happened. She claimed she slept with a guy and stayed the night at his apartment. This never happened. None of the above ever happened. She's a compulsive liar, and she is the most obnoxious perpetrator of attention-seeking behavior I know. Photographers of Reddit, what is the most outrageous photo shoot request you have received from an Instagram influencer? Wedding photographer here. They said they were influencers with a great following that they'd promote me to, but when I asked for their handle online, silence. I get this is a lot as I'm fairly well known, so an easy target when people look. Exposure? People die from exposure. That last line. Best line I've ever freaking heard. My best friend and also my brother are photographers. Been a wedding photographer for 12 years. I routinely get asked to do entire weddings for free, not even always from Instagram influencers. One time this guy, whom I didn't even like that much, asked me to do a wedding for free for his friend. Someone I didn't even know existed at all until this interaction. I just imagine walking into a restaurant and asking for the absolute best meal they have for $0 and then telling them it will be good for their business to do so. DJ, same thing. Influencers weren't what they are now back when this happened, but there was this flamboyant musician client I had that wanted to generate a buzz. I was pretty early in my career so it didn't sound crazy at the time, but he hired me to follow him around a local outdoor shopping mall pretending to be paparazzi. It was actually kinda fun shouting fake interview questions at him while he ignored me. Lots of people fell for it and followed us around. Looking back on it, it was the dumbest gig I've ever had. Sounds funny and seems harmless honestly. I had a client ask me to Photoshop his head onto another guy's body because he liked the shirt the other guy was wearing more than his own. I actually did it because it was hilarious and he paid me for it. Artists gotta eat too. Had someone ask for me to do a videography shoot of their new house being built. They said $200, but they wanted me to go each weekend for 2 years and shoot it to build up a time lapse and stuff. I definitively said no. I was selling an old camera on eBay, maybe $50, and someone asked me to send it to him for free so he could review it on his YouTube channel. I'm not the manufacturer of the second-hand camera, just an art student trying to make some money, so I don't know how he thought reviewing my old camera was of any benefits to me. And then it turned out he only had 10 subscribers, so I really don't know what he thought he was doing. You have 10 subscribers but start your email off with "Hi, I am name better known as channel name." Somehow have avoided this with my actual photography work, but I still laugh about eBay guy. 10 people follow his channel, but only 3 people know who he is, himself and his parents, so he wasn't wrong. A bald guy asked me to Photoshop veins in his head to make his head look like a giant dong. He was some kind of businessman who was selling an audiobook. Dickhead move. Had someone ask me to do more than a week of videography for them and create a promo video for $200. Not a day, for the whole week. Assuming 8 hours a day, 5 business days, that would come out to $5 an hour. Jesus Christ, that's less than minimum wage. The entitlement of some people. Influencer asked me to shoot and before I even had the chance to give her my prices she decided to give me hers. Over $300 for me to shoot with her for 30 minutes. One of her main selling points was she could teach me how to leverage and grow my social media. Girl was 15. She was asking me to pay her $300 plus when in reality at a minimum she should be paying me. I don't even charge that much haha. In fairness, I can kind of see how this entitlement develops. Random fashion companies offer modeling opportunities to girls as young as 14 just BC they have 3k followers and post bikini pics. And that combined with general teenage dumbassery leads to a massively inflated ego. Had a girl contact me to do a suicide girls photo shoot. I gave her my rates and she got back with "Oh, I don't have that much. Isn't it enough that you'd see my tea?" As a photo assistant in Chicago, I had a friend tell me there was a popular NY photographer looking for an assistant on Instagram for a shoot in Chicago. I inquired with the gentleman, and he said he only had a day rate of $150. On top of that, he said the day would be a 14-hour day, and he asked me to pick up his equipment rental, which included a 12-foot sweep, and store it at my place to be ready for the shoot the next day. Heck no. $150 for 17 hours worth of work. IDC which photographer you are, pay your assistants correctly. Typo, pay not lay. $150 for 17 hours. Bet that's an older guy who used to get $150/day assisting 25 years ago, like me. Not a photographer, but I sell rocks, crystals, obelisks, palm stones etc. to fund a small animal sanctuary. I've been asked by a few people to borrow my inventory of rocks to do photo shoots for. None of them offered to pay and wanted me to lug 1,000 pounds of rocks to their location and set them all up all out of the kindness of my heart. I would have taken $50 or $100 for an entire day's shoot tbh, but really? That's sweet of you. Please keep doing what you're doing. Beet poop. Some influencer that was promoting betanin in beets' healthy diet. She want me to take images of the color change poop. That this is actually normal in those that can't process the betanin. That week, my DSLR was dropped hard, and now I am without it. It was a bad week. The strangest thing to me about this is not the fact that she wanted pictures of the poop, but that she wanted someone else to take the pictures. Yuck. Also, sorry about your DSLR. Had an influencer try to set up a shoot with me. When I mentioned my price, she was shocked because she was under the assumption that I was going to pay her for some reason. I work at a hotel and it's unfrickin' believable how many of these dipshits want to stay for free in exchange for a post. Our marketing research shows they have almost zero ROI. A few years back I was in Acadia National Park and we did the Beehive Trail hike. For those unfamiliar, it's basically as close to rock climbing as you can get, non-harnessed, as you are going straight up a cliff on iron rungs and stuff. So super fun, and you are rewarded with an amazing view at the top. Most people take a quick snap there at the lip, as most do at the peak of their hike, and then move on to the more rocky area, but less a nice view, to rest. Anyway, while we were there resting, two Instagram girls got to the top and promptly took over the best view of the lip to take various yoga poses, because that was totally a natural thing to do after scrambling up a cliff. For at least 10 minutes families were coming up asking if they could take a picture, but they literally said we were here first and we'll be here a while when asked if they were almost done. We ended up leaving before they were done, but it still boils my blood thinking about it. I would just photo them all their pictures until they left. I can't stand people like that. Professional hair. This isn't really outrageous in terms of what they wanted to do in a photo, but I would say 90% of influencers who contact me try to use tagging as their form of payment. Well, I have 100k followers, so you're guaranteed to get so much work from this, you'd be an idiot to say no. This is word for word what one woman said to me when I politely informed her of my rates. Paying artists an exposure is nothing new, but the level of entitlement I'm seeing these days is off the charts. The only thing I can ever guarantee from these interactions is that they will throw a massive tantrum when I say no, complete with some classic Arne Segerals lines like "your crap isn't even that good, I was trying to do you a favor," etc. One person contacted me saying that she gets paid X amount from companies per post, thus every post she makes using my photographs should count for X amount of dollars paid to me, because like so many people will see it, you will pretty much be famous. Yes, I do my best to explain how the process actually works, that exposure isn't a form of payment, etc. This has varying degrees of success, but a lot of the time they end up paying my rates anyways and say something like "never know if you don't ask, right? LOL. No, I don't ever respond with sarcastic or snarky comments. You never know when someone will go off the rails and start bad mouthing you on their platform. Screenshots are a thing, and word of mouth is a huge part of getting new clients. Yes, it would be immensely satisfying to lay into some of these people, but an out of context screenshot with some victim story behind it can be extremely damaging, so it's always better to err on the side of caution. I honestly appreciate all the suggestions for counter offers and ways of dealing with these people. There are some seriously smart answers here. Bravo Reddit. I don't let anyone take advantage of me or my business, and managing client expectations is just part of the job. Someone asked me to shoot her entire wedding, a full day, an engagement photo shoot underwater. I do underwater photography also, and some honeymoon shots somewhere, all for exposure. I straight up said no, politely, and she kicked off in a patronizing way asking me if she knew who she was and what it would do for my career. She had about 10k less followers than I did, and I don't even do weddings as I had pointed out, so it wasn't even in my best interest even if she had millions of followers. Oh, and an influencer guy asked me to do a nude photo shoot for him for free. I declined but wished him luck. He then sent a dong pic. I reported him. The influencer with less influence than you, that's rich. I was in NY once and this girl, should be in her 20s, approached me and told me to take her photo. I thought it would be some general request, but still, To stand up to my pride, I lowered the camera to gain an architectural perspective. But then when I look at her, she was standing in middle of the road, one arm on a car that she must have stopped cause that traffic was ongoing, and the other holding a banner that said, "Life." To this day I had no idea what I just witnessed. She asked for $200 HR with a 3-hour minimum, without any real prior modeling experience, and had conditions that the photos could not be posted anywhere and that she was going to have them sold exclusively on her Patreon. Not a photographer personally, but a few of my close friends are. My friend we'll call Sarah is a pretty successful photographer for only being college student. About a month ago Sarah and I were meeting up for lunch at our university's food court and she's fiddling with her cameras prepping them for a big shoot she has that night when this very attractive girl walks over and starts chatting us up. She makes a few minutes of casual conversation mostly inquiring about Sarah's cameras, and then finally asks if she'd be interested in doing a shoot. She immediately throws her pitch, which had to do with modeling some very risque outfits up in the mountains just outside of the city and then a few photos directly in the center of downtown. Overall the whole pitch was something that bordered very close to being pornographic in nature. Sarah tells the girl her typically rates and also states that because of the nature of the shoot she'll have to charge extra as it's not something she typically does or is super comfortable with. The girl's face when Sarah mentioned the price went from enthusiastic to very "are you kidding me?" She then butts in and says, "I have over 85k Instagram followers. Do you know the kind of exposure working with me would give you? This is a once in a lifetime chance for you." Sarah responds telling her that she's an in-house photographer for 3 of the city's largest concert venues, works as a photographer for the newspaper, and is a highly recommended wedding photographer on top of it all. "I don't work for free." My favorite line she said during this was, "I work with people much more famous than you on an almost daily basis. I've shot photos for Marilyn Manson, Motley Crue, Shania Twain, Post Malone and a bunch of other musicians that come through and was paid for all of it. Your exposure isn't worth anything to me." After that the girl got really upset and walked off. Work in a camera store and do photography myself. Hear stories about this sort of stuff all the time. Usually just ask model shoots for exposure, but I've heard and seen stories. There is a fairly popular one at the moment about a photographer in Chicago, about people asking for full wedding shoots for exposure. Not always influencers asking these questions either. Sometimes people ask this stuff and then say stuff like, "Well, if I had that equipment then we'd be able to get the same results." They just don't have respect for the time that goes into the art form. Point them to Borrowed Lenses website and wish them luck. I do documentary film and I had a non-film job in college and I met this lady who was maybe 30, asked me to do an Instagram video like this, and she showed me a professional video shoot done with a green screen, lights and set. I told her I could probably get pretty close to quality with my university's equipment, but it would take time to get a crew together and reserve a studio. She told me no, that I should just record it with my phone. I told her that's not what they did for the Instagram video she just showed me, and she said it's on Instagram. That means they recorded it with their phone. She dropped it after I mentioned I charge money and wouldn't just do it to be nice. She has like 10 followers and 3 of them were porn bots. I do photography on the side since I'm mostly film video, but I have a friend who has an Instagram account as a side business for fun. I told her I would do a photo shoot for her if she helped me with my resume and cover letter. Although she has tons of companies that give her products to review for free, the photo credit she gave me honestly didn't lead to any followers on my Instagram. So yeah, anyone who wants exposure for crazy work I don't think knows that they actually don't give any exposure. In my case I was the one who brought up the deal, and honestly I would have done it for free to get out of the house because she's my friend. But yeah, that photo credit doesn't do anything in my experience. I do street photography every so often. I was once offered influence credit for pretending to be in shock that I found her in the streets of my town. I would take a bunch of photos of her at the spot and give them to her. This would all be recorded by her, I hope, boyfriend. I wasn't allowed to use the photos myself and all I would get is a tag at the end of the description. I said no thanks, then snapped a couple photos of her. She said she would sue me. I said we were on public streets and I'm a hobbyist who doesn't sell. I don't need model waivers. Never heard from her again. Never used photos either. She's not interesting. She said she would sue me. I had someone try this line on me when they discovered I was recording them while playing TF2. I told them go ahead and try, buddy. I am more broke than a dropped dinner plate. They quickly left the server. Not a photographer, but one of my acquaintances is a semi-popular influencer. She spends way too much time to see authentic and down to earth. One time at a small party I did something funny that made a bunch of people laugh. Whatever it was wasn't caught on camera and she forced me to recreate the moment so that she could film it for her Instagram stories. You're not having fun unless you can prove it to your thousands of followers apparently. Do that spontaneous thing again. Do it. Everyone needs to know how much fun we're having. BTW, there was a great Always Sunny where D was essentially trying to do this. Fellow redditor pointed out the episode of Always Sunny was season 14 episode 07. The gang solves global warming. I paid my photographer for my album cover with cinnamon buns. He insisted that was the payment he wanted, so I've invented a new currency. Did it with the photo editor too, although it was a mix of money and cinnamon buns. Imagining a world in which we pay for everything with cinnamon buns. I'm a train conductor, heading out to hop on a train that was parked to take it to its destination. The locomotives were under this 200-yard long overpass tunnel, all private property. There's two early 20s girls under there taking pics. I asked them to leave and they took an attitude and were upset I was ruining their photo shoot. The engineer and I are all ready to roll. I'm tall, young, and fit, so the engineer asks if I wanna go try to get their phone number. I reply nah, reach over and lay on the whistle for a solid minute as the two trespassers run screaming. Whistles are loud, amplified by a compact overpass tunnel. It's painfully loud. Also, cool railroad pictures aren't worth getting hurt or putting trainmen in a semi-responsible position of your demise. Haha, I love ridiculous requests because I do surrealist neon stuff on my own time and really enjoy going for weird unusual vibes. Probably the funniest was one girl who came to my house. I have a mini jungle to shoot with my plants and we wrapped her up in vines, wrapped her guitar, stacked up plants behind her and generally made it look like she was being enveloped by plants. Fun results, and really funny to shoot. I'm no model, but if I had to choose a way to be photographed, it would be in a sea of plants. Not a photographer, boo it. My friend and I were flying to Vegas, and we were sitting in a bar in the airport having some beers. We watched a girl do a video shoot with her mom for 20 minutes. The odd thing was, she did the same walk away from the camera pulling her bag, then turn around and pose, make a silly face, growl at the camera every time. It only took maybe 30 seconds for her to do her thing, then to go review it, and start again. She did it dozens of times. It was great. I live in Vegas. We obviously have tons of tourists. This crap drives me insane. Obviously you'd take pictures, but the 30+ minute photo shoots in front of signs always get me. Not photography, but I make videos, full productions for major clothing sports brands. I get a crap load of influencers and models that are dying to be in the videos. One even tracked me down on Tinder after I blocked her on Instagram, begging that she would be way better than all the models with a professional portfolio and agency. Did a casting call on Instagram once. Worst mistake ever. There is a huge difference in being an Instagram model influencer and an actual professional model. Yes, we need to know all your sizes. Yes, all your sizes. I couldn't give a crap about which cup hip shoe size you have, but productions needs to know how else are they gonna make clothing that fits you exactly. No, you can't take photos, vlog on set. You're getting paid to model, not to influence. No, you can't post those photos until 6 months after when the clothing line gets released. Yes, you have to wear winter clothes in summer and summer clothes in winter and shoot for 10 hours a day. Sometimes I believe being a model is even harder than being in the crew. At least I can look like I'm dying after the 3rd day. They still have to look pretty. I'm a model and it's crazy how much influencers change down market. The only positive side is that every time I work now, photographers and clients are always telling me how easy it is to work with me. How the last girl was hard to work with. Of course, I'm a professional. I do the job I've been paid to do. I was asked to do a boudoir shoot featuring blood, bondage and vampires, people biting each other, by a very well established children's show staff producer back in Toronto. It was a woman. I didn't do it, as I can't have my name associated with shoots in that field. Nude, Boudoir, BDSM, because I work with global brands in the food, property and portraits industry. The risk factor was too high for the pay and that kinda thing has never been my style, despite being asked many times to do these types of shoots as a female photographer. The show has been around since the mid-90s. It was extremely famous back in the day. That's all I can say. If you're American, there's a good chance you've seen at least one episode. I wish I could name drop, but I haven't been granted permission to do so by the producer, for obvious reasons. Very famous children's show producer. I can't think of any, but Google says Dan Schneider. A related story but exactly what OP is asking for, we were on a road trip and at the Tocatli Falls near Southern Oregon. Now this falls is located at the end of a trail about a mile long. The trail leads to a vantage point that's about 40-50 feet above the fall. If you are a rock climber, then you can probably scramble to the base of the falls, but it's quite a scary endeavor. The day we were there, we saw two influencer couples at the parking lot. We noticed them because the girls stripped down to their skimpy bikinis at the parking lot and they had some snorkeling gear as well. Now this is a pretty popular spot on Insta, and so the parking lot was packed with quite a lot of kids and families around. They started the hike the same time as us and were planning on various poses and shots the whole time. Finally we reached the end of the trail and they realized that all those cool shots on Insta means scrambling 30 featuring down a wet rock face to the bottom of the falls. The disappointment was palpable that day. The bickering while hiking back was even better. It still cracks me up to think about that day. An influencer contacted my production company to shoot both a photo session and promo video. They sent me an estimate on how much I had to pay to do the work for her. I politely declined. Well, I'm a boudoir photographer on the side of also being a fashion SFW photographer, and I've had a request years ago to shoot a spiritual group self-masturbation orgy event. At the time I was way too new to the boudoir and erotic side of photography in general to go through with it. Honestly, if it were today, I would have totally done it and blogged about it. IDK, they sound like a bunch of wankers. Not a photographer, but I recently got back from the Dominican, and while there, a girl spent roughly 40 minutes sitting on a paddleboard and standing in the ocean striking new poses for what I can only assume was her Instagram. The time invested in being artificially genuine is sickening. Similar experience. I was on the beach and I watched a couple spend the entire afternoon trying to get the perfect shot for her IG or whatever. She would paddle out, make some kind of wacky yoga pose while her boyfriend took the pictures. Then she would paddle back in and yell at him for taking crappy photos. Lather, rinse, repeat. They did this for hours. While not Instagram, I did a photoshoot videography for a laser fireworks show with a great band. The shoot was for a friend's company. Didn't discuss price beforehand since I knew they know how much I charge typically. Thought I'd get more than normal since I also helped set up the $15,000 worth of fireworks and helped with tear down. I was then expected to pay myself by skimming off the parking money for the venue they were using. Needless to say, we aren't friends anymore. I shoot concerts frequently as a hobby, and I usually offer the artists some photos in exchange for a media pass and tell them they can do anything with the images that I send print or being sold. 90% of the time people have zero issues with that and agree happily, except rapper Made in Tokyo or whatever his name is. He asked me to pay him a $300 photography fee to shoot his concert on top of having the ability to do whatever he wants with the images. I told him LOL no thanks and immediately stopped messaging him. He then messaged me twice more asking for $200 then $100 before I blocked him on social media. People who have accidentally sent nudes to the wrong person. What was the aftermath? Not quite the same, but early on in our friendship, like 4 days of knowing each other, a friend was trying to show me a dong pic a guy had sent her and instead held out her phone to show me a picture of a well-shaven vulva and glory hole. It took me a few seconds of puzzlement before I asked does he have a fanny? She looked at it and instantly turned beet red. She had accidentally shown me the picture she sent him in return. She still feels mortified over it, but I found it hilarious. Reassured her she has a nice looking pudendum. She shouldn't be showing other people's nudes. I don't get that at all. If someone sends you a nude, show some respect and appreciation by not showing your friends. It wasn't a nude but a obscene text. I wanted to send the screenshot to a friend but sent it to my family group chat. I deleted it, but 5 minutes later mom asked me what the pic was about. I managed to convince her I had no idea what she was talking about and it was probably a virus. Freaking Facebook should delete messages from both sides. She knows but she is playing like she doesn't to make you feel good. My boyfriend and I were spending the summer long distance, so Snapchat nudes were carnal frustration saviors. One night, I was sending obscene texts to him and a pretty illicit boobs and undies pic gets sent to my coworker. Yes, coworker, male, no less, and new to my office. We had traded Snapchats to be friendly as he liked to share a lot of stories of his car. But now I had just sent him full shots of my naked breasts. Not exactly the precedent I wanted to set for a work relationship. I snapped him and immediately begged for him to ignore the pic and forgive me. I explained they were meant for my boyfriend and that I was an idiot. Thankfully, coworker was an awesomely chill dude and we never spoke of it again. We were pretty good friends until I moved states. Either way, for months I used a new Snapchat with only my boyfriend as a contact because I was mortified at the thought of sexting anyone by accident ever again. Thankfully, boobs have been safe ever since. Smart move with the burner boob account. Accidentally sent a nude to both parents in a series of photos of my kids. They laughed hysterically. I made some awkward jokes at my own expense. And now I triple check to make sure I didn't accidentally click anything weird while scrolling to send pics. Just seeing if you're paying attention. I accidentally sent nudes to everyone in my address book once. It was so embarrassing, but the envelopes and postage were really expensive. Okay, Elaine. My nudes are all over the internet, and so when someone I used to date threatened to leak my nude pictures I thought it was pretty funny. Go ahead, leak 'em. Send one to a Snapchat group consisting of 16 guys. Most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me, but luckily they're all pretty good friends and nothing really bad ever happened except for the occasional round of laughter every time it comes up. Had to tell one of my friends that it was definitely not funny to keep it saved, and everyone else agreed that they didn't want to see my junk every time they opened Snapchat. It really went better than expected the moment I realized what I had done, but while everyone laughed at me when in a group, most of my friends admitted privately that it might as well have happened to them. I've been the recipient, from a coworker, 3 times. My first name matches that of her husband. The 3rd time I refused to delete them and she took me to HR. I said it had happened twice before and I was keeping them for evidence of gender-based harassment. HR told her to STFU. Oh crap, good call. I have not done the sending, but I was the recipient of an accidental nude. A female friend happened to be dating a man who had the same first name as me, and then one day I received a nude pic of her. I was not sure what to do. I thought about it for a while and then deleted it and texted her that I had received it. She was of course horrified. I told her not to worry about it. The next time we saw each other she thanked me for being cool about it. The more interesting part of it was the decision whether to tell my fiancé at the time about it. Now my wife. She was friends with the woman also. In fact, better friends who occasionally hung out. And the woman was invited to our wedding, which was going to occur in 2 months. I decided I better tell my fiancé about it because I could see our friend mentioning apologizing to my fiancé for it. And if I had not told her about it, it would look pretty bad for me. My fiancé was P and even said we should uninvite her to our wedding. She calmed down, though. We did not uninvite her, and as far as I know everything is cool now. Ugh. Yeah, that's a tough spot to be in. You did the right thing in telling your fiancé, for sure. Sent nudes to my best friend, a guy as well. That was intended for my girlfriend while I was on holiday. Sent him a total of 76 messages, including on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, texts, WhatsApp and calls, voicemails, basically begging him not to open it due to my massive fuck up that I explained. Said he got the messages and just skipped past it. Actually, my situation was reversed, but I'll share. My best friend had meant one for his current boyfriend. He was pretty drunk and his boyfriend and I share the same first name. We had a pretty good laugh about it, until he sobered up the next morning and apologized about 1,000,000 times. My dude and my dad share the same name. This is the ultimate nightmare. so I've taken a lot of steps to try to make it easy to tell in my drunkenness or soberness, never letting my guard down. Who is who so this doesn't ever happen. Not a nude of me, but I'd somehow rather it was. But I accidentally forwarded on a gif of a man crapping in his own mouth and eating it to my family's WhatsApp group. That wasn't a gold star move. Would not recommend. I somehow sent a string of Snapchats to a female friend that showed me violently masturbating. I was drunk and was trying to send them to my boyfriend and somehow clicked her name over and over again. A good 10-second long snaps, at least. As soon as I had realized I'd done it, I messaged her on Facebook and told her it was an emergency and that she was not to, under any circumstances, watch the Snapchats I had sent her. I told her exactly why. She asked how graphic it was because she's already seen my fan. I told her it would ruin how she viewed me. LOL. And she proceeded to open them with great caution. I don't know if she watched them and I don't really care if she did. I'm just glad she read my warning before she opened them so she didn't think I was a class A weirdo. Describe violent masturbation. Seriously curious. Sent nudes and a pretty descriptive BDSM fantasy to who I thought I was my girlfriend. My stepmom called a few minutes later saying, "Honey, I think you sent me something that wasn't meant for me." We agreed to forget about it, but now she asks me what I think my dad would like her to do. Just traded trauma for trauma, I guess. When she was 13, my sister's boyfriend sent a picture of himself to her while my dad had her phone. My dad went over there and I imagine that kid had a bad afternoon. I've sent one to a friend on accident. It was a video to top it off of me topless and it was meant for my boyfriend at the time. I sent a long string of "do not open S," but he opened it anyway. It got pretty awkward after since it was also a dude who made advances on me in the past. I also accidentally posted a picture of my butt to my story. It got screenshotted and a lot of people saw before I checked my phone. I need to stop using Snapchat. Or just add me as a friend. No way I'd be absolutely screenshotting damn booty pics. I had some random stranger send me some pictures of herself in her revealing bedroom attire. She was confusing me with someone with the same name, and so said something like, "Haven't seen you in ages. Are you back in the UK? When can we catch up?" I felt sorry for her, and politely replied and said, "Sorry, I think you've confused me with someone else. I've deleted your photos." She replied the next day saying I was always such a big joker and this time included nude pictures of herself. Was long distance from my GF my first summer in college and was sending obscene texts to her when some random number starts texting me. It's one of my old co-workers and her friend who went to my childhood church with me. I found this out later. I didn't have them as a contact and they were playing the stupid "you have to guess who this is" game with me and I got tired of it and ignored them. The next time I got a message from my GF, I clicked the message notification, took a pic of my meat and hit send. It wasn't till later, when my GF didn't respond, that I realized that Android phones at the time didn't open the conversation of the notification you got. It opened the last conversation you viewed, so it sent to the annoying girls. The church girl was sending me winks and flirting with me, but she was on her friend's, the co-worker's, phone, and the co-worker blew the frick up about calling the cops and saying I'm disgusting and that I should go get hit by a bus. That's when she told me who they were and they didn't believe that it was for my GF or that I even had one. I called the GF and explained the situation and she laughed for a good 20 minutes. That's a pretty extreme reaction from the co-worker. I did this once. Sent a dong pic to a guy I know from soccer instead of a girl I was interested in. They both have the same first name and I clicked on the wrong text thread. Well, turns out he liked the pic. He laughed it off at the time, said it was no big deal and not to worry about it. I asked him to let me buy him a pint of beer or two after our next soccer game and he agreed. So we go out for beers and he asks me about who I was sending the pic to and we start talking about fricking women, etc, and I'm pretty horned up at this point from taking about fricking and he tells me he's curious. He asks me if I'd let him give me a BJ. I'd never thought about doing anything physical with a guy before, but I surprised myself and agreed. Dude gave great head. We both enjoyed ourselves and he ended up blowing me a few times a week for like 8 months. It was great, but I ended that arrangement when I entered a relationship with a girl. He and I still play soccer together and are pretty good friends. He's now dating a girl and apparently she gets turned on watching him suck dong. So he's found the perfect situation for himself. So yay, the accidental dong pic worked out for the best. I found out that for me, a BJ is a BJ whether it's from a guy or a girl, and he found out he really likes sucking dong. Just a bra job, 0% gay. In a Snapchat group with 3 other people from work, 2 of them started hooking up and one night we all received a picture of the guy's dong. We are all still friends, he just earned the nickname name Snapchat. Not sent but received. A coworker wanted to share some music files with me and sent me home with a flash drive containing music. What she forgot was she'd used the same drive to transfer some pics and vids she'd made at the request of her FB at the time. Not just nudes, but stuff like her wearing goth makeup and smoking a cigarette, then blowing smoke at the camera, a close-up of her peeing, etc. I didn't want her to accidentally share them with anyone else, so I told her as I handed the drive back. She was embarrassed, but we laughed it off. I told her I thought it was pretty cool that she was willing to indulge her FB's requests and not to worry about it. It never really affected our work relationship, as we've got a pretty open atmosphere office. I hadn't even thought about it for several years until I saw this ask. BTW, I don't send dong pics because no one's ever asked and I don't think most women want them, particularly when they haven't requested them. When I use online dating it's always famine for a couple months then a feast of replies and conversations for 1 or 2 weeks which has often led to a long-term thing. I happened to get a message from 2 girls named Rachel around the same time and was texting both. I'm bad about not putting last names in my phone for people because I only have like 40 contacts. Rachel asked me for a lewd photo so I took something very PG-13, which is hard for a dude, but use your imagination. So I shot it over, and a few hours later I get a message from other Rachel and it's a tit pic. Turns out she found the spontaneous pic to be hot. I ended up going out with her until she moved to Fresno 2 months later. We are still friends. I never actually replied to the girl asking for the lewd pic and she never had texted me again so it fizzled. I sent a nude to my ex and they got jealous, which really ticked me off because they cheated on me and that's why we broke up. Was recipient as I never send nudes out of principle and paranoia. One of my female friends gets around a ton so she usually contacts most of her shags on Tinder then move on to Snapchat. I'm one of her friends who has a streak going so I'm near the top most of the time so I've received a couple nudes over the time we've known each other. First was so mortified. My only thought at the time was oh nice tea, though I was definitely aware it wasn't meant for me as I was and still am taken. The others basically just got follow up frick not again. I sent them via Snapchat. She was an old friend from high school I hadn't talked to in years. She sent me a whole paragraph about how I didn't need to send those and my body is a wonderland. Accidentally sent a dong pic to my mother. Wife's name starts with M so it was close in contacts list. Mom responded with wow. I would have thought it would have grown since I last saw it. Thanks, Mom. It wasn't that I sent the photo to the wrong person but it was definitely received by the wrong people. My girlfriend decided to open the very raunchy Snapchat I sent her whilst showing her whole family around the dinner table. Her auntie still brings it up. Year 1992, college, was a nude model for art classes. Girlfriend was a photographer. She mailed a very tasteful black and white photo of me in the buff that she was proud of out for submission to a photography gallery. They mailed it back to her return address, to her parents' house, after deciding not to use it. 4 months later I'm invited to a dinner party at her parents' house and her mum, a member of our university faculty, had it framed on the wall in her den. This was a full-sized portrait of me, larger than life. The smile on her parents' face never left. Her dad thought it was hilarious and kept trying to get me to stand next to it. Accidentally sent a nude dick pic snap to a good friend when Snapchat was in its early days. Immediately got a message something along the lines of Jesus Christ. I was just showing how the app works to someone at work. I apologized and he laughed it off. He later that year secretly came out to me, said the pic was hot and we got jiggy. Result: not a pic but obscene text. I was really drunk that night and was sending obscene texts at the time. I was so drunk to the point that I'm typing the texts with one of my eyes closed so I can see clearly. Her name starts with A and so is my cousin. The next day, I came across to her with a smile and said, "Whom are you texting last night? Women on top like a helicopter." How I check my sent items and we both laugh at it. When I was in high school, a female friend and I had a thing going where we would send nudes over Snapchat with drawings around on our junk and bodies. I sent a few ones that got good reviews, such as Business Dong and Sonic the Hedgehog. This banter continued until I really fricked up. I got up one morning before school and decided to kick off a hard day with a drawing of unprecedented artistic proportions. It was my dong, underwater, wearing an old Timmy deep sea diver suit, complete with arms, a face, fish, seaweed and even bubbles. Alas, I misclicked and thought I deleted it by mistake. I was bummed, but on my way to school someone sent me a CD snap of their face just saying, "Nice story bro." I had set Aquadong as my story. I got to school and everyone started calling me Aquaman as a result. The name never stuck though because people genuinely thought it was funny. The picture still gets pulled out at parties sometimes, and honestly I'm still proud of it. Not so much a nude. I have a group chat with my family, which includes my 2 brothers, 3 sisters, mother and brother-in-law. We have this tradition that we send each other our dinners. It was a Sunday evening so naturally I was naked eating Chinese food. I sent a pic of my food on my lap and didn't realize WhatsApp does that thing where the pic you send is kinda cropped unless you click the full image, so I didn't notice at first. It was 2 days later when I looked at the image in my camera roll I realized there was also a bollock in the shot. Not one of my family members noticed and to this day it's never been mentioned. My GF at the time sent a picture of her in a jacket of mine with no panties that you could barely tell unless you analyze the photo to her ex that she was talking to while talking to me. But honestly not sure if it was an accident though. Anyways, he got all pissy because he just said you're playing with my feeling and keeping me by lines like a puppeteer. But I mean she did that with everyone and she said I love you. At first I was pee but just blindly believed her, didn't even think that much into it until now. Ha. Lad I worked with years ago, him and his partner swapped them all the time. We were at work one day when he disappeared into the toilet for 20 minutes. When he came back to work he was bright red. His partner asked for a pic and he'd sent it to her ma'am by mistake, much to our amusement. Told us the next day her ma'am deleted it and laughed it off. We didn't really believe him till her brother who worked on the same site confirmed it to be true. Some girl accidentally sent me Snapchat of her barely covered by a blanket really leaning over to show off her boobies. She said something for my Captain America. Shame I knew it wasn't for me. Dong pic to a car dealership salesman. I had been texting with a dude I met on Grindr when a salesman texted me about a car I wanted to test drive. Both numbers from same area code and neither one saved in my phone. The salesman texted me in the middle of steamy talk with this potential hookup and I was already hard. I don't know how I did it nor why I didn't double check, but I snapped a pic of my hard on and sent it to Grindr dude. Except it wasn't Grindr dude, it was salesman. I didn't get a response for several minutes, so I put phone down thinking he was busy or lost interest and went about my business. A while later I get a response and it says, "Does that mean you really like the car?" And then I died. I apologized profusely and he said no big deal, but now you owe me a purchase. Did not end up purchasing the car because I was too embarrassed to go test drive it. Hahaha, I did this. I tried sending a photo of my tea to a guy I was seeing and accidentally sent it to my friend from high school I had been out of touch with. I then texted the girl who was our best friend from high school the same photo to show her my hilarious mistake. I didn't want to leave her out. The first receiver of the photo then created the WhatsApp group to T-Pics and we've all since massively reconnected and text all day every day. We each live on a different continent. When one of us is drunk we usually share a boobs photo, keeping in spirit with what brought us all back together. My tea are magical. Not a nude, but my friends from high school and I used to send each other crap chats where we would Snapchat our particularly violent poos and send them to each other as a sort of competition. Well, one day I was snapping a poo and accidentally sent it to a female friend of mine. I immediately called her and told her to not open the snap. She, thinking I had sent her my dong, started yelling at me for sending her a dong pic. She then opened it and started screaming at me for not sending a dong pic like a normal human and instead a massively large turd. Not a nude but a obscene text. In my hometown I've made a name for myself as a musician and, without sounding braggy, local bars and venues know me well from my music. Anyway, last year I was talking to a venue manager over Facebook about a headline gig I was doing there. A few days later, discussing timings, support acts etc, while also talking to my girlfriend, sent her a obscene text that was something to do with pulling her hair while fricking, and lo and behold, to my horror I'd sent it to the manager. Got there on the day of the gig and introduced myself to the staff and they were like, haha, yeah, we know who you are. Wait, do you mean like wink wink sort of accident? Cause I sent some to my ex-girlfriend while I was dating her, but while suggesting I would not pic of myself, but meant to send a link a titty pic to my buddy. It went to my mill. In panic I immediately sent another message, saying don't open it, virus sent it, delete messages. She replied okay and it was never discussed again. Not sure if she followed the link. I once accidentally sent a dong pic to a work friend who happened to share the same name as my girlfriend at the time. Luckily she understood what happened and was very cool about it. In fact, a couple of weeks after the incident we were outside smoking and she mentioned that it was a pretty good looking dong. My younger sister by 6 years sent me a nude on Snapchat by accident. The kicker was I was having dinner with my parents at the time. She gave me the ol, it was a joke, not actually me, but I knew. I just tried not to react to it and told her to be more careful. I had sent a dong pic to my girlfriend on a private conversation on Instagram and saw she had seen it but hadn't responded to it, so I inquired her on Messenger and she said she hadn't seen it and had been using her mother's cell phone before. So that's how I found out my mother-in-law had seen my dong pic, but nothing came out of it. I went to take a shower and I usually tend to send my boyfriend nudes before. I sent boob pics first and then he asked for a picture of my fanny. I struggled for several minutes to get a great angle and got anxious that it took such a long time to send it, so I just rushed to hit the send button and immediately realized I had sent it to one of the girls in my class. I panicked and told my boyfriend right away what happened. I sent a lot of messages to the girl telling her not to look at the snap, just press it away, anything, just don't look. She opened it several hours later. And she laughed and laughed. She was cool with it and told me everyone sends nudes and that she had seen it before and that I shouldn't worry my cute little head. I'm still embraced today of what happened. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.